Just the Stats, Reggie Johnson, Eugene Morgan, coming to you from the lovely city of Atlanta, Georgia. And Eugene, there is one guy that I know for a fact will not be standing in the bread line or would not be having a GoFundMe, and his name is Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is not going to need to GoFundMe probably anytime in his life. He's not going to be standing in any soup kitchens, any lines anytime soon. Now, you know what's interesting about the Myles Garrett situation here? Very reminiscent of two more situations that I can think of in the past. One is Carmelo Anthony, and you got to follow me here. Carmelo Anthony, back in the day, when the New York Knicks, when he went on his tour of other teams to go see if he was going to sign there, he was going around everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And then he settled back at the Knicks, and he said, you know what? I went and talked to the front office, and I feel like we're going to be turning a corner. You know what that corner was? The Knicks offering him a ton of money. That was a corner that they were going to turn. Now, when Deshaun Watson said, hey, money? Correct. The corner wasn't the team being better. The corner is New York just offered me a boatload of cash. So now I'm going to go back home to New York. When Deshaun Watson said, you know what? Cleveland is cold. I don't really want to play there. I'm not going. Cleveland said, hey, we'll give you $250 million to come here. Deshaun Watson said, you know what, man? I think I want to give Cleveland a try because I think that we'll have a great chance. I like what they're building there. I want to challenge myself, I think is what he said. Something to that degree. Right. I really want to challenge myself, right? To go make $230 million to get guaranteed. He wanted to challenge himself to do so. Myles Garrett said, you know, I want to go to a team that I think is going to be winning. I want to compete for championships. That's what Myles Garrett said, right? He said, hey, guys, I love Cleveland. I love the fan base here. Right. I want to compete for championships. I want to go someplace where I can win some games and hopefully have a chance. I want to go maybe. So you think, man, when you hear of the extension or you hear of him be signing, you think he signed with the Chiefs, right? Like maybe he signed with the Bills. He signed with one of these the Ravens, right? One of the winning franchises.
Any of those three. Or even
he signed with a winning franchise because he wants to win, right? That's what he said. He said he wants to win. So he signed with one of those franchises. No, he didn't. Reminiscent of what Carmelo Anthony did years back and reminiscent of what Deshaun Watson did just a few years ago. Cleveland comes off the top rope with a contract that nobody was going to pay. Cleveland comes off the top rope with that $40 million contract. You know what Myles Garrett said? He said, you know what? I think we're turning a corner here. Man. And I'm going to see this thing through. Right. I'm going to come back, make my $40 million a year. And we're going to come here and win championships. That $40 million means I'm going to win championships now, right? Obviously, because that's what he said he wanted to win. He was going to win championships, right?
Exactly.
So $40 million a year maybe equates to champion. I mean, do I have Cleveland pegged wrong here? Is Cleveland that championship team next year that I'm just glossing over here, Eugene?
No, I don't. First, the quarterback situation still in flux, right? You have Deshaun tore an ACL. He's a ruptured Achilles. The Achilles again. So that's going to probably be gone the whole year.
It sucks just as much, for sure.
Right. They need weapons all over the place. I mean, I know we talked before we got on. Nick Chubb just got signed back, but he's still battling back from a knee injury at age 29. Correct. You got Kenny Pickett signed. I mean, I wouldn't be too excited about that.
Got your backup locked in. Kenny Pickett's locked in. So when you're looking at your roster of Kenny Pickett,
right,
almost 30-year-old Nick Chubb coming off of injury, Deshaun Watson's injured currently
injured,
and you see championships here, right? Like that's.
I guess, or you saw dollar signs. Yeah, I mean, it's just
man.
Yeah,
I'm going to step out here, man, and say, because I don't know, I'm in no meetings, guys. I don't know anything about what Cleveland Browns are discussing on any given day. I have no clue what's going on there. But I'm going to step out on a limb here and say Myles Garrett probably went back for the money. It's probably what happened here. He probably went back because they paid him a boatload of money. Now, let me tell you why I feel like that is the dumbest thing on earth. It's like, to me, it's the Porsche in front of the trailer park. Like let's say I'm in a trailer park, right? And I got my trailer.
Mhm. Yeah.
And right outside that trailer, you see like $100,000 Porsche, right? You see a car that could buy 2 of my trailers if I wanted to. And it's right outside my
Right.
house. It's like $100,000 Porsche. Maybe I just like Porsches and I don't really like houses. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, if somebody's like, I don't know if this guy has his priorities in order. You know what I mean? I'm not sure. That would not necessarily be an unfair assumption. Like, I get it. Maybe I just like Porsches and I don't care about my house. I will live in this Porsche if I wanted to. But at the end of the day, people might look at you and say, hey, I don't know if everything is buttoned up over there. I'm not sure if this guy has everything from a priority standpoint in order. Okay. When you're Cleveland, I know what you're thinking. This guy's we can't let him out of here. We can't let him out of here. This is Myles Garrett. We drafted him. We don't want to let him out of here. And I get
Homegrown
that
player.
thought, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. But here's the problem you have. You're paying $40 million to a guy that's not a quarterback on a team that's not right around the corner. Like, that's not like right there. Like, if you were right there, Eugene, I get it. Because you're right there, and Myles Garrett might be the tipping point. How I feel like Chris Jones was for the Chiefs not too long ago. I felt like Chris Jones was definitely the tipping point for that Chiefs defense that won that Super Bowl the year before last. Not this past season, but last season. When they remember how Chris Jones was in a holdout with them, they got destroyed like first game or so. Then miraculously the deal gets worked out with Chris Jones and their defense goes on to be phenomenal. If you're right there, if that was really the case, yes, absolutely. I can see that. Let's say you already got your Patrick Mahomes locked down. He's on a cool contract. You want to give Chris Jones $40 million? Fine. You already got a Patrick Mahomes here. You already got guys here. You already got things in place. I get it. You want to give a guy $40 million and you don't have these things in place. Now I'm thinking either you have a plan to address this in the draft, which I think that can still be possible. I think that Cleveland can just go and address the quarterback in the draft. And then if you know you're going to address the quarterback in the draft, then this situation doesn't look as bad to you because you think, well, we're going to get a guy on a discount on a rookie contract if we decide to go after a quarterback, which gives us the ability to pay other key players on the team. We all know how that window works out. You take that quarterback rookie wage contract, try to run it up, try to compete in that time period, and then hope that before you got to pay the guy $200 or $300 million that, you know, you guys have gotten championships, or at least you got a few more pieces in place. Guys, you're not going to like let go. When you look at the Myles Garrett situation, I just don't understand it. Is there something here that, like, without them getting a quarterback? Now they go into the draft and address quarterback there, which they definitely can, by the way, with where they're picking. It's definitely a possibility. That's the only reason why I'm not killing Cleveland over this, because I think it's still a possibility they do address this in the draft. But otherwise, paying $40 million to a guy that's not a quarterback when you don't have a quarterback seems questionable. Myles Garrett himself, nothing to say about that. He's a stud, man. Defensive player of the year. And I won't have no Myles Garrett hate here. I just don't know if I feel like he's like a Ferrari. It's that Lamborghini. I mean, you got to have your house and everything else together.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing is like this cap goes up every year. So, I mean, you've got that in your favor.
wonder what the cap went up this year. Let's look and see.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got that in your favor. But I don't know. I mean, I get it from him. You know, yes, they're going to throw $40 million at me. I'm going to sign here. But if I'm Cleveland, if I'm Cleveland, I have so many holes in so many areas. I don't have a number one wide receiver. I don't have a number one running back. I don't have a number one quarterback. You have all these, and offensive line's a little shaky. I mean, their defense is still good, but you know they could still upgrade in some spots over there. It's just one of those things. That's like you have so many needs, and you have this chip that you could have probably traded and got a whole just at least some nice draft capital back.
They could have got half a team for him, man. Like, you could have been able to really turn that into your Herschel Walker situation. So instead of turning that, and for the uninitiated, this is kind of what Jimmy Johnson did with the Cowboys back in the day when he traded Herschel Walker and got all those players that won the championship in those Dallas teams, and that became a very historic trade because back then people weren't trading players the caliber of a Herschel Walker back then. That. So but the blueprint, in my opinion, is showed to you there. If you're a team that has multiple things you need to address, you need to get multiple picks, right? You need multiple picks. You need players. You need capital. There's a lot of things you need, a lot of arrows in that quiver that you're going to need to address all the holes you have.
Right.
And you just let 40 million of them go to one guy that was already there.
It's already there. And now he has a no trade clause. So now you've just limited yourself.
Does he have a no trade?
He has a no trade clause now. So now with the new
Bro,
contract. So now you just limited yourself.
They bent the knee, man. They bent the knee. They couldn't take it. The cap is raising about $25 million roughly. It was 255 last year. It's 279 this year.
Right.
Now what's interesting is that the bending of the knee to that degree, because how did you not learn anything from the Deshaun Watson situation? It just reeks so much of it to me of like them panicking that Deshaun Watson wasn't going to come to their team. So they overpaid for him and guaranteed the entire contract.
Guaranteed the whole contract. So
you felt like Myles Garrett was going to leave you and you could not retain him. So you gave him $40 million a year and a no trade clause, and he's not a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You better. From what I'm seeing, pass rushing is definitely a major situation. You need it, but from players that can affect that literally are touch the ball every single time. That's what a quarterback does. They touch the ball literally every single offensive play. I don't know how much any of these other players, whether you're a linebacker, whether you're an edge rusher or a cornerback, a wide receiver, a tight end, how much does your play affect the game to where you're taking up that percentage?
Yeah.
Are you having a 20% effect on the game? Because that's damn sure what you're going to need to have. You know what I mean? When you go in there, you're going to need to have a 15 to 20% effect on the game, wrecking the game. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're going to have to be in there just destroying stuff, which I do think he's a game wrecker, but 40 mils is a lot. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of
money when you have holes. You know what I mean?
Right.
So hopefully, we'll see. Because I don't mind. I think the Cleveland fan base deserves a winning. Man, that fan base shows up for their team. So maybe they'll get that worked out. Now, this is interesting. Geno going to the Raiders because they couldn't get anything done with the Seahawks. And from when I was on another sports show talking to a guy from Seattle, or a guy from Seattle was discussing this situation, and one of the things he said was they couldn't get the deal done at 40. I think it was a deal like 40-ish. I think is what Geno wanted.
Right.
And I hear the Seahawks did not want to do that. They gave Darnold, which we will talk about after this, 30-ish, right? 33-ish.
Right.
Darnold, when you look at that deal, okay, so is there anybody that can be faulted here? Let's look at that. If you think about it on the surface, where you look at the Seahawks and Geno, you're thinking, Geno has been pretty good for you guys. He's got a winning record here. He's a very accurate, one of the most accurate throwers in the NFL, to be honest with you. Maybe he can get that 40. You think like a 40? Maybe he can get that 40. And it seemed like the guy that I was talking to yesterday definitely wanted them to give Geno the 40. He didn't seem too excited about Sam Darnold's situation. He wanted them to give Geno the 40. But let's think about this, though, from the team standpoint. If you could get Sam Darnold for the contract, because that Sam Darnold contract is not a bad one at all.
Not a bad one.
If you can get that contract, that makes letting Geno go a little bit more worth it, in my opinion, because now I don't think either one of these guys is your 10 to 15 year answer. You know what I mean? It ain't like the Luka situation that just happened in the NBA. You know what I mean? We got two guys that both, I mean, I think they could both play for another 5-ish years, if they wanted to, 5-7 years, maybe at a high level or not. I don't know. But I don't think that either one of these guys.
Geno's 34, so I don't look at Geno playing until 39, maybe.
So that's maybe 37, you think?
Yeah.
So 34, 35, 36. Let's go 3 years. So let's go 3 years on him. And then I think Sam, I want to say either late 20s or early 30s. I got to go look at his age.
Sam Darnold's 27, so yeah.
Okay, so there is a significant age difference there because Darnold at 27, you could argue that if Darnold did catch on, he could play to 37. You could argue you could pay for 10 years. If he caught on. And the problem I think that you have here is the fact that this is an anomaly in the years that he's been around. So when you look at the years that he's been around, you're bringing him to your team, but you're not bringing Justin Jefferson and Addison and those other guys to the team. You know what I mean? And I like JSN, but you got rid of DK. So I feel like Addison and Lockett. Correct. Good safety blanket. He caught to me. Lockett catch some balls there. So Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are a very good combo. Now, I remember telling people like I like that. I believe that Addison is underrated wide receiver. I've had him on my fantasy team last couple of years. He's underrated. I think he's a good receiver. I think he would be have a lot more light on another team if he was like their number one receiver. But you're playing with JJ, and that's just otherworldly. So you have those guys on the team. I can kind of get why maybe that's why you're, because you got to think about it. If those guys weren't on the team and Sam put up the numbers he put up, maybe he does get that 40-ish. You know what I mean? That 40. Maybe teams discounted the fact that those guys were on the team. You know what I mean? And we're like, well, I mean, everybody's going to play well with them type situation. They might try to throw out there to get the number down or whatever they got. But
right.
With the Raiders getting Geno, one of the things that seems to signal is that they might not be going after Shedeur. As a lot of people were saying that because remember the Shedeur to the Raiders thing caught on a lot of steam. At one point, a lot of people were like, hey, Shedeur is going to the Raiders. I don't know, man. I mean, it doesn't look like it. That's going to happen. Because why would you sign Geno and then sign Shedeur? It's not like Geno is not 39. You know what I mean? So it's like he is definitely starting. So Geno's definitely going to be your starter there. At 34, you can argue he could start for another 2 to 3 years easy. He can start 34, 35, 36.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to hold Shedeur for 3 years. I think a team that drafts Shedeur is probably looking to start him this year, to be honest with you. So that doesn't really bode well for them. But what do you think about the fit in general? Like, you like the Geno fit with the Raiders?
I like Geno. I do. Going back with the old coach, and let's just face it, they just need a stability, something, just have a stable presence. And I think that's what Geno does. He's not, he's not gonna, just excite you as like this awesome quarterback, but he's a stable quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's a above average quarterback, and that's not nothing to knock the guy. I mean, his story's been amazing. And the Raiders needed this. The Raiders needed this. I think they needed this more than taking Sam Darnold. And now you got Sam. Poor Sam's going to. He doesn't have Kevin O'Connell. He's going to banged up offensive line. He's got.
That's kind of what my the Seattle guy was saying yesterday too.
Right, and I could, other than I can hold a gun to my head. I couldn't even tell you who their number 2 receiver is.
Right, because they got rid of them. They got rid of their guys, right? So now the only receiver I know is JSN. So before, the number 2 receiver would have been like there was a 1-1A maybe between Metcalf. I think JSN probably was their number 1 receiver last year, I want to say. I got to look at that and see. But those 3 guys, JSN, Lockett, Metcalf, those were that's the receiving core. And you just kind of took that for granted. And now 2 of those guys are gone. Who do you have there? I think that's a good question. Maybe they target Kupp or somebody. I don't know.
Yeah, they could do that. I mean, that wouldn't be a bad pickup, right? I mean, you're not have to pay him a lot because he's still getting the Rams money, so he'll probably be more of the cheaper deal. But I don't know. It's like one of those teams. Like, I don't know what you're doing. You look at it, I get it. I mean, let's just face it. Kevin O'Connell, he's made people look really good coming through that organization. I mean, he's made some guys look like they're Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And so, it'd be interesting to see what Darnold looks like. I mean, hopefully he's on the redemption story, right? Kind of similar way, right, with Geno Smith. The Jets, kind of like everyone, they let him go, thought he's washed. He goes different team, and it becomes a solid starter. Maybe that's the story for Darnold. We saw again.
Wouldn't it be crazy to have it be the story for Darnold with the same team that it was a story for Geno for? Like the two they're really sitting in the water in Seattle, man. If there's another, but you can kind of say the resurgence. It depends on if Sam. You can argue the resurgence would have started in Minnesota with Sam, if he does not drop a beat here, right? Like if he goes into Seattle and passes for another 4, which I don't know who he's passing the balls to. I don't know who's catching those 4. Then maybe you can say, hey, well, Sam, maybe he was just misunderstood. Maybe the Jets and these other teams he went to just fumbled him,
Yeah.
But I think it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see. I think he's going to have to do that in order for that to be the word out here. Because if he comes and lays an egg, then people are going to call him being in Minnesota an anomaly. They're going to say that Justin Jefferson and Addison and Kevin O'Connell pretty much carried him to those numbers. because they also, let's not forget. Well, I like Kenneth Walker when he plays. I got to see if Kenneth Walker's actually playing. And they got Zach Charbonnet too. But I say Aaron Jones is catching balls too. Let's not forget. Aaron Jones is actually catching some passes. You're not going to have him. You're not going to have Aaron Jones catching passes either.
Yeah, they did, like I said, they need to put some solid protection around Darnold because he needs it. That's the one thing you lose with Geno. Geno can move out of the pocket. Like Geno can get out of and that was the one thing. That's one of the things. Like, okay, look, we're not gonna get and you knew, at least Geno knew, like, hey, I'm not gonna have the best line, but I can move around and I have 3 receivers to throw to. So now you've got to get a solid line and maybe beef up your running back in the draft. But you got to get line. You got to protect the dude if you want him to. Because that's one thing we have known with Sam. You've got to give him protection, or he's going to be.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's going to be the task for Seattle. If I'm Seattle, I'm looking at this going, it's a rebuild. At least you didn't pay him a lot of money. At least it's not like you're not.
It's not a crippling contract.
It's not a crippling contract.
Imagination. Sure.
Yeah, you can move on to.
But it also doesn't stretch me as a confidence contract either, right? It doesn't stretch to me. It doesn't say to me when I look at that deal. It doesn't say to me that Seattle's saying we've got our guy. You know what I mean? Like, if now $100 million is still $100 million. Don't get me wrong. But when you're seeing guys that aren't even quarterback signed for 40 per year, you're like, this isn't a ton of. This is like, we like you. We don't hate you. We don't love you.
Right.
We like you. And maybe we'll have an opportunity to love you later. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we don't love you now.
Yeah. Right. And that Detroit game was still kind of lingering. You kind of like reverted back. But again, you didn't go. It's not like you didn't play you played against Detroit. So that was just
correct. And they were dogging a lot of teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
now
I'm with
our
you.
Boy,
let's wait and see.
Justin Fields here. Justin Fields on that 2-year, was it 2-year, $20 million? Is that what it was for Justin?
It was 2-year 40, and
2-year 40 because it's 20 per. I think it was a 20 per. Now this is interesting, and I really was hoping that the Steelers were going to hold on. Guaranteed is 30 on this, by the way. But the annual average is 20, so it's a 2-year 40, guaranteed 30. Listen, mixed emotions here. Mixed emotions because, for one, I wanted him to stay with the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see this thing through with Justin Fields. I felt like he did enough to be on the team. And when you look for what this team just signed him for, if he ends up working out for them, it'll be such a bargain basement price if it ends up working out for them. They'll have a quarterback that worked out for them for like $20 million. On the other hand, organizationally speaking, feel like Justin would have been way better with the Steelers than with the Jets.
Yeah.
From an organizational standpoint. Jets have not shown the ability to just not be dysfunctional as of late. Like, they just have an inability to not be dysfunctional. They have to be dysfunctional. Like, they can't. You say, hey, we need you. We got Aaron Rodgers now, guys. We just need you to be functional for the next couple of years until Aaron Rodgers out to the sunset. Jets are like, no, absolutely not. We're not. We can't be. And Aaron Rodgers was a disaster. And here we go. Justin Fields kind of going in now. We have Aaron Glenn there, who I'm pretty sure wanted out of the Aaron Rodgers business for sure.
Yeah.
But this is interesting. It's just high risk, high reward, man. I like Garrett Wilson here. Devontae Adams has left. I don't love the team. I like that Justin is getting another opportunity because I felt there's something left in the tank. I just wish that opportunity. Maybe I'm just being bitter, man. I just wish that opportunity was with the Steelers and feel like he has already started there. I really don't know how this happened. Because if the money was so crazy, then I could say that the Jets just outbid for him. You know what I mean? The money was just so phenomenal. But a $30 million guarantee, we just talked about Myles Garrett making $40 million in a year.
Right.
They guaranteed 40 for 2 years for a quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And then they can probably, if it, like you've said, if it's a wash this year, you can go to next year and you probably have a better quarterback class coming out next year. So it's a $30 million gamble, which he's going into a team that has some good pieces around it. But like you said, I think it's
some
better.
Good skill pieces, man.
Good skill pieces, but I like the. I don't know if I'm him. I'm kind of looking in the rearview mirror and going, "Oh, wait a minute, the Steelers just got DJ Metcalf. That would have been nice to kind of."
I really don't understand what happened there, and I would love to get clarity on that, because if you don't have Russell Wilson and the guy is in, this is something that I would have just never fumbled. Either for one, I don't like the guy and I just let him go to the Jets. That's one thing. Let's not, and I'm not saying they love them. I'm not sure. Maybe they see something that I don't see. I don't know. And you just let him go. So that's one. But barring that being a situation where you just don't like the guy, it's just hard to press to feel like you could not have got this deal done for $40 million for 2 years. Like, it's just hard pressed to feel like you could not have got this done if you wanted to get it done.
Yeah, maybe the Steelers, and maybe the Steelers didn't look at him as their starter. I mean, maybe that. I mean, I kind of heard a little bit about that. They weren't married to the idea of him being the starter, and maybe they were only going to offer him, hey, if you come back, it'll be at this dollar amount, and whoever we're going to bring another quarterback, and you're going to have to compete again. Versus, maybe the Jets are going, hey, just come here. It's your job, but it's still like a 1-year trial deal. You still got to show us that you can play, but at least he kind of has the starter role going with New York.
Very similar to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold definitely has more money and more security because Sam Darnold's got more years. But Sam Darnold situation in the sense that we don't seem like we love you. We seem like we like you and we want to try you out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And maybe we can fall in love later. Maybe. You know what I mean? Right. And then at 2 years at his age, for sure, bro. You knock this out the park. His next 2 years, that $100 million is coming to you. For sure. If you were able to knock these next 2 years out the park. At his age, for sure. He's got a couple years. Like if you're Kirk Cousins, you don't want to spend those couple years. If you are Justin Fields at your age, just being able to play and have an opportunity to show that you can play is pretty good. And I think that's congratulations at least to him for that. Let's go to our wide receivers here. Cover them real quick. We got our boy Debo. Going to the Commanders, and this is in discussing Debo and Kupp, and we're going to discuss both of them. These are two guys that I have mixed emotions on because when you think about them in your head, at least me,
in your head,
great players, mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Debo, great player. Cooper Kupp, great player. When you look at them on paper, I don't know if they're going to be as great as they are in your head. Like in my head, they're excellent players. On paper, they're good players. They're not bad. Yeah. They're not trash, but they're not as excellent as I thought they were. And the reason is because they've had excellent years.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what has happened. They've had excellent years. And I think that I got to look at both these guys. But I don't know if either one of these guys have more than one season over 1,000 yards. I think both of these players, Debo and Cooper Kupp, only have one season where they caught over 1,000 yards. When I was first looking at that, and I'm going to fact check that just to make sure I'm not talking out of my behind.
Yeah, so I think Cooper had more than that. That could be.
I gotta look at it and see. I don't think I don't. I remember looking at the stats and being very shocked. Yeah, Debo's 1,000 yard year came in 2021.
I know Debo, but remember Debo's used a little more differently though.
Let's look at Cooper Kupp here. Cooper Kupp has. So when I'm looking at Cooper here, and I bring up his stats, he had 2021 and 2019.
Well, 2 years. Don't just gloss over that 2021 year. That was the year he went insane.
Here is the problem with not glossing over 2021 is you got to pay him in 2025. And it's not 2021. And therein lies the problem. And therein lies where I think the problem comes in with a lot of these contracts is that part right there. We can wax poetically. We reminisce. We remember great guys. We remember greatness from these guys.
Yeah.
And we say, hey, man, this is a killer. Cooper Kupp is a killer. And I do that. You would have games where it seemed like Matt Stafford didn't even Puka was on my fantasy team. And there were certain games where I'm like, Matt, Puka's on the team too. Matt's just throwing that thing to Cooper every time he gets. And even with that being said, we get to one season over 100 catches. And we get to 2 seasons out of going into his 8th year.
Yeah.
And I just feel like people in their heads thought he was better than that. If you had told people that in their heads, a guy played for 8 years like Cooper, if I just, let's say I framed that question a different way. Well, both these guys, Cooper Kupp and Debo, let's say I framed that question different way. And cause I think they both played 6 to 8 years or so. Okay. And I come to you and say, hey, these guys, Cooper's played 8 years. How many 1,000-yard seasons he has? And let's just say you ask the average fans, how many 1,000-yard seasons does Cooper have? I'm pretty sure more people are going to say 3 to 4. The people are probably going to think he's had at least 4. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I mean, definitely on the Cup
Because of the
side,
name.
yeah, with Debo, I would never think that just because they use him in different places. Like they use him as
But
a running
Debo is
back.
not
Yeah, he's
only
a
a
running.
receiver. And Debo is a
Right.
great football player and a good wide receiver in my opinion. So Debo,
Yes.
in my opinion, a great football player. A good wide receiver. Yak King for sure. He catches the ball.
Yes.
He's taking
Right.
that thing. That has a certain amount of money that it gets paid, right? The problem that I have with that's different than a Cup situation with Debo, even though I do look at these players the exact same way in the sense that I do feel like they are great in my head. But I was shocked at both these players. Maybe it was just me, because I was just shocked at both these players when I looked down and saw that they weren't as great on paper as they are in my head. Because in my head, these players, Cooper Kupp and Debo, in my head, I'm not sure what's going on here. Debo and Cooper Kupp in my head, we got all kinds of stuff popping today. Debo and Cooper Kupp in my head, I'm thinking top 10 in the league, man. You know, these are top receivers, right? Maybe I'm thinking from my fantasy perspective, but I'm thinking top guys. But when you look back, I don't even know if they're top guys on their own team. I gotta go look back and see what Nakua's doing. I gotta look back and see what Ayuk had done these past few years, because I know Ayuk was getting to that 1,000.
He was.
So it's you run the risk of these guys a lot of years not even catching the most balls on their team on their own team, more or less being top 5 in the league. Like I'm thinking in my head. So maybe that's just a me problem, Eugene, in the sense of like I just thought so highly of these guys. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because when they play, they do look dynamic. Like when Debo's out there playing, he's a dynamic player. When Cooper's out there, amazing. You got to respect the fact that Cooper's out there. You know what I mean? Right. Even the stats that we're talking about, you can't ignore the guy. You know what I mean? You got to respect he's out there. So it's interesting to look at these numbers and see Cooper 800 yards, 700 yards, 700 yards. It's interesting. You know what I mean? And maybe one of the reasons that leads to this, because if you're a person that had maybe felt the way that I felt, then this news would have been shocking to you that they even released the guy. You'd been like, what? Release Cooper Kupp? Like, you can't, it's not even, there's no way possible you do that. But then you look at the numbers like, oh, okay. Well,
yeah, they look
you
at
might be able to replace his production. You might be able to replace his 700 yards. So it's such an anomaly in these years that I don't know what the money with the players. Like there's an amount of money for Cooper Kupp out here. What is it? Is he a $20 million a year receiver? Is he a $30 million a year receiver? What is the amount of money for Cooper
I think
Kupp?
he's so just probably like, I mean, just because the wide receiver market is so just almost dried up. I mean, there's not a lot in free agency. There's not a lot coming in the draft. So he could probably command that $15 to $20 million because he's not. I mean,
I think he should be able to get 15 to 20. To me, I think he's worth 15 to 20. I think that when you get over 20, even at that 17, 18 range, I would have to go start looking around the league, because at what you're really doing at that point, Eugene, is just seeing if you can replace the production. Like if I feel like I can replace 700 yards here with a guy that's not making nowhere near that money, why not just try that? You know what I mean? Even if I can replace 500 to 600 of those yards, right? Even if I can, because it's the guys that have the monster yards that's hard to replace. Like if you go to Cooper's year that he won the Triple Crown, that year he had almost 2,000 yards.
Right?
You ain't getting that replaced. No. You're not getting there. Ain't guys out here catching that. You know what I mean? So Cooper's got you right here, right? This is where he's got you, because you ain't replacing that. Even if you get a guy that catches 1,000 yards, I'm double him. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's not the case for 700 yards. So at 700 yards, we can get a guy. Even if we get a guy that approximates that at a fraction of what we pay you, we'll take that. You know, we get a guy that comes in here and does 500 to 600, but at a fraction of what we're paying you to do that, I think we'll take it and use that money elsewhere. You know what I mean? And on other parts of the team. So I do think there is money for Cooper Kupp. Like I wouldn't necessarily mind us picking up Cooper. I think Cooper needs to go to a team that does have another guy. So I think that Nacua being there was great. I think it's great for Cooper to go to a team with another player there. You know what I mean?
I think that's what Washington did as well. Like he's not in Washington, he's gonna be a nice extra piece. Like they have
correct, because they got Scary Terry there already.
They do. They've got to send
a great football player. Let's not get it twisted. I think
so I think that's what he'll do, and he'll probably position himself to like go to a place where he can actually win another championship. So he's probably not going to be like looking to take a lot of million. You know, a good spot for him to go would be Buffalo. I mean, that'd be a good spot for him to go. I mean, that or even like, oh my god, I hate to say this. What happened to ends up? Is this like a perfect like just a Kansas City guy just goes there and all
Oh
of a
man.
sudden, I mean
It seems like something that you just got to do at this point. You got to go at least to the
right.
Kansas City and see Pat one time in your career. Your career is kind of going down the twilight. Go to Kansas City, man. Go
Go to
see Pat,
Kansas
man.
City, right?
You know.
Just take it like a $2 million contract or whatever, and then just go get paid in the open market. Like what Juju did that year. He won
He won a
the
Super
next
Bowl,
year,
man, and
won a
he
Super Bowl,
showed
got
up. Not
paid,
only did he win a Super Bowl, he was
and he
productive in
showed
the
up.
Super Bowl. You know what I
Right.
mean?
So I mean, I could see him do something. If I'm him, I'd do something like that, or if he can get some extra money, but go to a team where they're not going to project him to be the number one.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. I do think there's a place where he should land. It's just interesting to see where that place would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for how much money? For what is the money going to be? I think if you're
Yeah.
going to pay Cup close to 30, then you're in love with 2021 Cup. If you're going to pay Cup
Exactly. No, I don't
15
see
to 20, 15 to 20-ish, I feel like that's more for what 700 yards will get you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yes.
And that's and by the way, we're not just being poo-poo in that 700 yards for this year. It was like 678, 7 this year. So 7 is like the average for the last 3 years of what he's been getting.
Yeah,
So
it's a drop off. Because let's not pay. Let's also he gets injured. Like
he gets injured, and that's another problem, right? Because availability is the best ability, Eugene. The fact of the matter is some people might look at this impressive. I got to look at the amount of games he plays, because some people might be like, that's impressive. He even got 700 yards in the games he played, but that's also a problem. And also on a knock, he's not the guy that stays on the field consistently. So that's also something that's not going to be attractive to teams. But it would be interesting to see. And a very hard pressed. Maybe some teams wait to the draft, Eugene. I don't know. But it would be hard pressed for me to imagine that we go into next year and Cooper Kupp is not on a team playing somewhere. Like, I think he needs to be somewhere on a team. And last but not least, who took Cooper Kupp? Well, let's just go to the guy who took Cooper Kupp's job, Davante Adams. Interesting situation here. Davante got a bag. He got renewed for I think it's a $44 million contract, I want to say, for Davante Adams. Let me just look at this just to make sure I am not lying. Davante signed a 2-year, $44 million contract with the Los Angeles Rams, including a $12 million signing bonus, $26 million guaranteed, and an average salary of $22 million. In 2025, Adams will earn a base salary of $8 million and a signing bonus of $12 million. While carrying a cap hit of 14 and a dead cap value of 20. Now, what's interesting here is the guarantee makes this like a 1-year contract?
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're at 40, 44, you guaranteed 20.
Yeah. Let's face it, if it's a 2-year contract in the NFL, it's a 1-year contract. Let's just call it what it is.
And then and if this was an actually 2-year contract, it would have been a 3-year contract, right?
Exactly.
It's almost like we're getting to the point where if you don't say guaranteed, you're just chopping years off there, man. If you don't hear the guaranteed on that whole contract, which you're not going to hear in a lot of NFL contracts, then even Myles Garrett's full 160 wasn't guaranteed. But it's kind of like the guarantee is it. So definitely this looks like being the fact that this is about half of what the money is, of what the full contract is, like Justin Fields a little more confusing to me, because his is $20 million per year, but he's got $30 million guaranteed. So you guaranteed 1.5 years of Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily how this breaks down here. This is breaking down pretty evenly to like 8 years, what it's looking like. $20 million is a lot, but I will say Davante Adams is a productive guy. Davante Adams is a guy that I feel like has the exact opposite problem of the Cooper Kupp problem. So, and I'm going to tell you what I mean. A lot of people discount Davante Adams. Like just like I might play up Cooper Kupp, a lot of people discount Davante Adams. Yeah, people will say stuff like he's falling off. And when I was on a another sports show discussing that, and he was being spoken of as if he is falling off. The question was kind of being posed. It was a question of as if he was kind of like, does he have anything left in the tank? I had to go look at the guy's stats. I'm like, bro, he had 1,000 yards last season. What are you talking about? Like he not like you look at these other guys where your last 1,000-yard season goes back 3-4 years, right? We're looking at a guy whose last 1,000-yard season goes back like 2 to 3 months when the NFL was playing. Like he had it, and more impressively, he had it with 2 teams. He had it. Let's not forget he was on that Raiders team half the season. I want to say about half the season. So Davante Adams had 1,000 yards between the Raiders, and the Raiders don't have Tom Brady playing there at quarterback.
No,
put that out
no,
there.
it has some horrible quarterbacks playing.
He was able to catch 1,000 yards between that and Aaron Rodgers with the Jets. Okay, he was able to catch 1,000 yards between those two. That's worth some money, guys. I mean, it's worth money. It's worth money. When you see guys out here, I want to say, and I'm gonna tell you one of the most ridiculous contracts I've seen so far. Josh Palmer, I think, got $36 million for 3 years. And that's not breaking the bank incredibly. But I had Josh Palmer on my fantasy team, and I wish he was good. I wish Josh Palmer was a good wide receiver. I have Josh Palmer on my fantasy. I drafted him the first year, I thought, because he had that wide receiver body where I'm like, oh, man, this guy is going to come into the league. He's playing with Justin Herbert. He is going to slay. He did not. He did not slay. So if he can, and I'm going to just look up his stats to see, Josh, just to make sure I'm not talking out of my behind here, because it's important that I'm not lying to you people out here. Josh Palmer has played for 4 years. He's got 2,287 yards total combined in all 4. Josh Palmer had 500 yards last year, 1 touchdown. He had 581 the year before, 2 touchdowns. He had 769 his best year in 2022, 3 touchdowns. The man just got a 3-year contract this year. I think with the Bills. I think with the Bills. He just got signed. So if that can get signed, how come Davante can't get his money? Like Davante should be able to get signed if the Josh Palmers of the world are out here getting signed, Eugene. This can't be a situation where you're looking at Davante Adams like, oh man, are you washed or should we give you money, man? Like, no, bro. There's no way in the world that other guys like this should be out here getting these looks, and players like Davante Adams aren't out here getting these looks, you know? So
right.
I feel good about that Davante Adams contract. And plus he's going to Matt, man. You know,
go to Matt. He's Matt's gonna throw the ball.
He's gonna throw him the ball, bro. Right. Exactly. Matt's gonna throw you the ball. You know? Yeah, Davante had 854 with the Jets, 209 with the Vegas Raiders. Played with the Vegas Raiders in 2023. It had 103. Yeah, 100 yards. Played with the Vegas again. I forgot he played with Vegas in 2022. That was when he was with his boy Derek Carr. Exactly. 100 and 1,500 yards then. The last time Davante Adams didn't have 1,000 yards was in 2019. It's the last time he didn't have 1,000 yards. And people are asking questions like, oh, is Davante falling off, man? I don't know. You know, and then meanwhile, you got guys that have like 600-700 yards. They're being sought after. Guys got like 500 yards getting multi-year contracts.
Yeah. And the Josh Palmer, I think it's just the size. You're signing the potential. But you know,
I feel like they're signing what I drafted in my fantasy, right? Eugene. Like they're signing the guy that I drafted in my fantasy team. They're looking at the same thing that I looked at. Here's a guy, gotta be a stud, right? Look at him. He's gonna be a stud, man. Gonna be a stud. And the thing is, he was dropping balls, man.
210
passes. Yep. Perfect, right? Like when you look at him out there, he looks like a guy who's gonna catch 100 balls, man.
Looks like the guy.
100%. But instead, you get guys like Ladd McConkey who don't look like the guy who come out here and destroy you. Ladd looks like a way better receiver. And Ladd is coming out here not looking the part. You know what I mean? End of the day, it's just guys who can catch the ball, right? And that's kind of where I like to look at. And Davante Adams, great. We end the show here with Davante Adams because here's a guy who can actually go out there and catch passes. He can catch passes. And I'm hoping he doesn't fall off this year. I'm hoping this is not the year he falls off because we all know age and attrition happens to everybody. So it's going to happen. There's going to be a year he doesn't catch 1,000. I hope it's not this upcoming year. But I do think that he's earned the ability to just not catch 1,000 before people just say he won't.
I would be shocked if he doesn't. Going to a better, I mean, Sean McVay, an offensive genius, an offensive guru. Matt Stafford's going to find you if you're open.
He loves throwing the ball, man.
Loves throwing the ball.
Absolutely.
He'll get you the ball if you get open, and and Devontae finds a way to get open. I think with Puka probably going to get a lot of double teams. And he's just going to get a lot of those underneath throws, and he's going to be right there. He's going to, he's not going to wow you. He's probably not going to, make those top Twitter, whatever moments. But at the end of the day, I think you're going to look at, holy crap, he had 1,100 yards. He had 6-7 touchdowns. He had over 100 catches. I think that's where you're going to be with him. And it's not going to be a shocker. You're just going to be like shocked, like, oh wow, I didn't realize he had that many. He did all this, but it's kind of been in his career, like these last couple of years.
Correct.
You wouldn't look and go, oh, like you were shocked, like, oh my god, he still had 1,000 yards.
You're right. I can't believe you caught so many passes. It's the catching 100 is like, it's the volume, because you can have guys like your DK Metcalfs, and I think I told you this before, where DK is a home run hitter. Where I don't expect DK to catch 100 passes. I expect DK to run to the end zone and catch the football. That's what I expect DK to do. And he's going to do it at least a few times a year. He's going to do exactly that. But is he Devontae Adams? Do I expect the guy to have 100 catches a year? I don't. Like, it's a different type of receiver. And to me, these type of receivers that Devontae Adams is, a guy that can not only score touchdowns. I'm not going to show you 1,000 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm at least get to 6-7 touchdowns. I'm going to have the volume and capacity. You're not going to see 1,000 yards and then see like 50, 60 catches where they were just long bombs. So I'm catching I'm catching balls. I have over 1,000 yards. I'm scoring touchdowns. What else do you want from me if you're Devontae?
Right.
What else do you want?
And you're putting what, 20 million? I mean, I think that's what you're gonna. That's I would not be surprised. That's the production you're gonna get.
Which is what it's worth to me. That's worth.
That's absolutely,
because you got some of these guys out here making 30, 20 million. To me, once you start paying wide receivers 30 million, even once you start paying non-quarterbacks 30, $40 million, you better have it figured out. You just better have it figured out, man, because that's a lot of money. And you better hope that all of your other positions are taken care of if you're going to pay one human being that amount of money. Worth every penny, though, for my guy here, Devontae Adams, man. I'm interested to see how this works out. Now, and look at the Rams, too, by the way. Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. You still got Kyren Williams there. You still got Matt Stafford slinging it. I like the kid, Jared Verse. On defense, the Rams just seem to just be a good organization, man, just turning along.
Yeah. I mean, look, they were the only team in the playoffs that gave Philly, and they came in at the last minute. They were the team that gave Philly the biggest hit and almost beat them. So, I mean, you imagine that now. Now you add a good receiver. They're like you said, they always draft well. They're always like to be like they're going to draft the best. They're kind of like Philly. We're just going to draft the best player, not going to worry about what position we need at the moment. Which so many teams get in trouble with that, and like
they do, and then pass on like a generational talent or something somewhere,
right?
Because it wasn't a position they needed.
Exactly. Right. Like, oh, it's like basketball comp. Like, look at OKC. OKC, like, oh, well, because they don't care what they need. They have a type player. They draft it. That's the same way the Rams do. Kansas City. Kansas City does it all the time. You're like, oh, you think they're going to do this? They zag, and that guy ends up being, pretty good, awesome player for them.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this works out with this whole new Rams system. And we got so much more NFL stuff coming down with the draft and other things happening here, man. The NFL just doesn't really take a break. You know what's great about this time of the year? This time of the year, it's great for all of us because we're all even, guys. I did this as my final moment yesterday on my show, and I'll go ahead and say it again on this show. At this time of year, guys, we're all equal, ladies and gents. We're all 0-0 right now. We haven't lost any games. We haven't won any games. Hope springs eternal for those terrible franchises that just know they're going to suck as soon as we get to September and October. We get to September and October, and then we go back to our corners, bro. Like, if you know that there are certain teams that are going to suck come September, October, and that's when you got to go back to your corner. But for now, you can be out here with the rest of us. Right now, you're out here with the Chiefs. You're out here with the Eagles. We're all out here talking, man. We're all at the combine.
All the combine. One player could change our future. Looking for that quarterback, but then it's like, then you get on the field, it's like, oh no, they still suck.
Right, man. And there lies a problem. So we'll take this time between now and September to enjoy it, man. Enjoy it between now and September. Just being 100% equal here. This is Just the Stats. Check us out. Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. See you next time.